Welcome to Admitted Students Week, hashtag Violence for Life, a chat with Biola alum. We're so excited to have you guys here. So today we're going to be talking with one of our Biola alumni. We're going to be talking a little bit about her journey at Biola, but also about what life has been outside of Biola and how that journey has been. Ultimately, we're going to just go through some structured Q&A in the beginning, and then we'll have a time where you guys can actually get any questions that you have answered. So if those questions come along the way, feel free to chat them in the chat box, and our facilitator, Ashley, will pass them along to us, and we'll get those all answered. So in the beginning, we're going to do some introductions. So I'll start. My name is Brittany. I am a current sophomore at Biola. I'm a business marketing major, originally from San Diego, like I had just said. But I'm currently living in Orange, actually. So I had just moved a little bit closer to Biola in these last few years that I have on campus. So a fun fact about me is, although I'm from San Diego, my parents were actually ski instructors growing up. So I was constantly on the mountains learning how to ski, starting at the age of like 1 and 2. So I was one of those tiny little kids with tiny little skis, just at the mountains all the time. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll pass it along to our Biola alum.
Yeah, I'm so thankful and grateful to be with each and every one of you. I'm Rayanne. I seen in the chat someone's from Whittier. So I was born and raised in Whittier, California, just right down the street from Biola. I was a communication science and disorders major. I graduated in 2018. And a fun fact about me is I can drink Starbucks every day if I could, but I try to limit myself as best as possible.
Nice. Okay, so we're going to now be moving into some outline questions like I had said a few minutes ago. And again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to chat those in the chat box and we will get them answered. So let's get started. So first question, how did you choose Biola for your undergrad journey?
Yeah, if I am honest, I can say I feel Biola chose me. Biola was nowhere near my first choice. And I say that because in my mind and in my heart, I was like, I'm going to this university. I have it all planned out. I have every step. We're going here. And as time went on, as decisions were making, and I was talking to different admissions counselors, I started getting rejected from one college. Then I got rejected from another. And once I knew all the schools I applied for, I got rejected all of them. And I was like, I thought I had all the requirements. And the last school I was waiting for was Biola. And Biola, I got the letter and I got accepted. Now I say today, Biola will forever be my first choice. If anyone says, go to Biola, go to Biola, I always would say that. And I still, even to this day, I always still wish I was an undergrad. I loved my undergrad journey so much that I would forever say Biola will be my first choice.
That's amazing. I feel like a lot of people have some similar stories to that, where they didn't think that they were going to go to Biola at first. And then it was kind of like, I even had an experience like that where it was in like the last few weeks before the decision day where I was like, wow, like Biola's my school. Like, I guess I'm going, even though like I had thought a few weeks before that I was going to go to a completely different school. So totally can relate to that. Okay, next question. How did you decide on your major?
Yeah, so during when I picked Biola, I met with a admissions counselor and I shared my passion and my heart and what the Lord has kind of led me into. And I ended up walking away with 5 different major lists in my hand. And I said, I really don't know what I want to do. And she's like, well, you need to make a decision before you have to go undeclared. And I was not wanting to do undeclared. And so as time went on, I prayed and I said, Lord, please lead me to a major. Like, I do not want to go undeclared. And that week, I actually went to my sister's, it was like my sister's school performance. And I said, okay, I was just going, anticipating a fun performance. And in that moment, I seen us like a few students and I said, I know what my major is going to be. And it had nothing to even do with communication science and disorders. But I knew in my heart I needed to be that major. And in that moment, I emailed her as quickly as possible. But in that meantime, I did my research. So before even that performance, I made sure each major I looked at the outcome of career. I looked at what type of internships. I looked at what would benefit me and how my interest and my skills would be in that. But it was a process, but it was all from that school performance and doing my research based off what the admissions counselors had given me, all the information. So I think an encouragement is any major that you decide to pick, or if you had picked, do your research, see if there's internships, see, um, the career outcomes. Because I believe that wherever major you pick, like the Lord will use no matter what.
Exactly. That's really important, I feel like, especially
Mhm.
because there's so many majors and so many things that you can choose from. But even doing your research, like that's really, really good advice because again, there are so many opportunities for internships and all of that, that having kind of that understanding of what you might be getting yourself into for the next 4 years and the opportunities that might be presented along the way, definitely important to do that. Okay, so next question. What aspects of your time at Biola do you feel like has prepared you for life after college?
Yeah, I would say getting involved. I think in my first year at Biola, I was like, oh, I always told myself, it doesn't matter. I need to focus on school. That was what I needed to. Until my sophomore year, I realized, no, if I'm wanting to walk away from Biola with all the experience and having to grow professionally and personally, I need to be involved. And so I think what has really helped me is utilizing spiritual development. They offered a lot of scholarships. And so being able to, not like scholarships, but then they also offered internships. So being able to work with them and the different clubs that they offer. And so I was able to be an intern for them for 2 years, which I was super thankful, but it also grew the skills that I had. And then being able to work with the Career Center. So there was so many opportunities in that area of, okay, this is what I can utilize and use that in the future. And even that point now, I can see, okay, these are the skills that I can grow in, and how can I continue to grow in them, especially if it's a skill and something that I wanted to learn. And I also thought about work outside Biola when I done graduating and the jobs that I'm applying for. So being able to also see that aspect as well. So I say it's helped me a lot by offering those internships and things and by getting involved. I think it really prepared and helped me for after. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important. I think that getting connected, because there's so many different ways to get connected on campus and so many opportunities that are presented, it helps you not only, I think, in your education, but also with relationships and things like that. And being
Yeah.
able to walk away from Biola knowing that you've made really good connections with people on campus is really important. Because ultimately, I think, at least for me, Biola is so much more than just a school where I'm going to classes.
Mm,
It's a whole experience, and it's where I've
mm.
made some of my best friends and some family, and it's so much more than just about going to classes. So completely understand that. Next question. What is your favorite memory in class with a professor?
Yeah, I think the being able to be raw and honest with where I was. I think those are my favorite memories, is being able to share part of my story, but then also hear other student stories and my peers. I think that's what made the community more special in the classroom setting. And I think that's something that I really was like favorite, like professor class moments, being able to know like, wow, the professor cares not just about what we're gonna learn, but they also care about, personally and growing the relationship and friendships with those around me. But even just thinking of like a favorite memory, I think for me it was building community with the peers around me and friends, having late night study sessions, whether that was in the library or going to the coffee shop on campus or a coffee shop outside of campus. I think it was about the community, but being able to learn and grow together. I think that together in community, Viola really grasped that, and I really truly felt that. So I would say that is that community and yeah, and getting to know others around you. I think that's so vital and important. And Viola really pushed that, and I believe my professors did as well.
Yeah, I think community, even though everyone that you really interact with from Biola says this, but community is a huge part of Biola. And I feel like
Mm,
it's one of those things that like your time at Biola is completely different when you're plugged in with professors and when you're plugged into your classes and meeting people through that. So definitely a huge part of our culture here. Okay, last not chatted in question, but last outline question before we get into some Q&A. What were some of your favorite off-campus locations while you were at Biola?
My favorite was I always loved trying the Biola coffee shops, as they call it. During when I was a student, they would always say Drip Coffee in Fullerton. They would always say downtown Fullerton. They would say downtown like Disney area. I would always say those two, the beach. I would say local coffee shops were my favorite. Like, I guess I can name a few. It was like Intentional Coffee in Fullerton, like La Mirada Buena Park was like Stereoscope Coffee. Every Starbucks in the local area was my favorite ultimately. Um, but yeah, I would say like downtown Fullerton, downtown Disney, just like the local places. But if I'm honest, I Yelped everything. And I say, what has the top star, like star ratings? And I would always want either Fullerton, Brea, or anywhere by the beach. So I always Yelped everything, or I overheard from classmates. But drip coffee was the most popular at Biola. So I encourage everyone to go and try it. Yeah.
There are so many coffee shops around here. I think that that's someone that during your time at Biola, I personally didn't even like coffee when I came into school. And I think just like even from going and meeting friends at different coffee shops around the area, I've started to just love it. So it's kind of funny that there's just so many around here, and you do that with friends so often.
And cafes too. A lot of people be like, oh, let's get like
Yeah.
lunch and stuff. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Okay, so guys, we're going to move into some Q&A. So again, if you want to chat in any questions you have, again, Ashley will pass those along to us. So we're going to get to our first one. Were you able to get a job quickly after graduating from Biola?
I would say for me, I got it within, I would say it was like 2 months after. I remember I made sure I talked with different people around me to make sure they looked over my cover letter, and I made sure they looked over my resume. So I always was like, I asked multiple people. I said I need criticism on this. Like I was serious about it, and I started the process a month, like that month, but then the month a little before I graduated. I was like scoping out jobs, like, okay, these are where I want to apply for. And I didn't. And so I would just like have those jobs in mind that you want to do, start looking at the skills and things. But yeah, it was like 2 months after.
Yeah. And I feel like that's pretty consistent. Or just,
Mhm.
I feel like people always kind of find like within that first few months, that's kind of when they
Mhm.
figure out. I think especially like even coming out of school when you don't exactly know what you want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I'm gonna have to explore once I've graduated
Mhm.
is just like realizing there's so many opportunities out there, and so kind of giving yourself that time to find a job and to look into potential opportunities. But I think a big thing that they are offering at Biola is even with career services and how they will work with you after that time, even after you're graduated, to be able to set you up for success. It's not like you're graduating and then just thrown into the wind with no help, but Biola will work alongside you to be able to find that. So definitely important to remember that Biola will work with you during that time.
Yeah.
Okay, so next chatted in question. How did you balance homework, study time, and being involved in community and campus life?
Yeah. I utilized my Google Calendar like crazy. I made sure, and during my time at Biola, I actually was working part time on the weekends. And so, how I balanced to be able to be involved in that, I made sure I had it always in my calendar. I had my class time slots in my calendar for when, like, I had it set, as well as, okay, this is my free time, as well as put in my study time. So, I was always thinking ahead. So, like, on the weekends, I knew I was working. So I was like, okay, I need to get enough homework done before or after. Um, and so I would say balance it out, have that free time, give yourself a good amount of chunk for free time and enough for studying. And I think that's important. I wish I had more time for community aspects and, church involvement. There's just so many things that come to play with church to school to homework. And so I would say utilize calendars or planners as best as possible to create those time chunks. And that will be able to really help you have that balance better by being able to like visually see what you have and what you can do.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's kind of, as a freshman, I think it's a reality that everyone kind of hits at a
Mhm.
certain point of like, wow,
Yeah.
like how am I supposed to handle this new workload and all of these like new relationships that I have? So I definitely know that I felt that myself of like, okay, like this is going to take a little bit more planning, especially more than it did in high school, because I think that was a little bit more natural. But just
Mm.
trying to balance all of that is something that's difficult, but you get the hang of it after a while. Okay, so
Yes.
next question. How did you manage the stress about the financial cost of Biola?
Mm. Yeah. Coming into Biola, I, from my parents and my family side, I didn't get the support or the financial aspect on that. And so I knew that loans is what I had to take out, and I used FAFSA and different things that I was able to utilize. One thing I wish I did more was look into scholarships. I encourage you, outside scholarships or Biola scholarships, I encourage you to look into that. It at times overwhelmed and did stress me out, and I think that's when I decided I'm gonna work part-time on the weekends. Um, and so I would encourage you to really pray about it. And it's probably cliche or sounds cliche, but that is something that I had to do. Like, Lord, give me peace about this because this is where I know where I'm meant to go. And I say it can be very stressful. Like, how is this gonna work out? And I would say if there's a way to do internship or like a part-time job, great, go for it. And if it's not, it's okay to take out if you need a loan. But I encourage you to look into scholarships, look into if there's any grants and different things. That is something that I deeply utilized. And I asked all those questions to financial aid. I said, if there's anything more I can do, and even your admissions counselors, any scholarships you know of, and some majors as well. I know that my major kind of didn't, but they also offer scholarships too. So I say utilize, ask as many questions as you can. And yeah, if there's outside scholarships that Biola you can bring in, I say totally go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I think in the beginning that I
Mhm.
was having to deal a lot with, just with finding
Right.
scholarships and all of that. But Biola's really here to help with that. And I think
Hmm.
even thinking about the 3 years after your freshman year, because I think for freshmen, often it can seem easier to find scholarships or to
Yeah.
see more opportunities. But Biola has a lot of opportunities for sophomores, juniors, and even seniors. Once you're at Biola, is just like showing you those opportunities, and you can meet with different counselors and things like that to help find those opportunities. Just because after freshman year, sometimes that can seem a little bit daunting, but they definitely work alongside you to help find those and to help you apply and work through the whole process.
Mhm.
Okay, so next question. Looking back, what are some things you wish you would have done during your time at Biola but didn't get to do? Or is there anything you would change about your experience?
Hmm. I loved every aspect, I would say. But I think one thing I can say that I would have changed is to take some of my Bible classes more seriously and more of my classes seriously. I think coming out freshman year of high school, I was like, I got this, I can know as much as I need to know. And honestly, I look at back now and I always say to myself, why didn't I take that class seriously? But you know what? I look back at all my books. I saved all of my Bible books and different things. And so I would say take the classes seriously. In the moment, you probably are thinking this class isn't beneficial or I don't need to know about this, but it's so vital and important that some of the stuff I look back and I'm like, let me see if I can go back on my canvas and see if I see things that I wish I can use now. And um, I think one thing I would have done, or I wish I would have done, I wish I would have got involved with missions conference. I was a part of Tory conference, which is another conference at Biola, but I really wish I would have gotten involved in the mission aspect. That is something that I wish I would have done.
Yeah, for sure. The conferences are a big part of the Biola community,
Yeah.
and just going to those and
Mm.
experiencing them. We have so many speakers that come, amazing speakers that will come and talk about all kinds of different topics. So that's definitely something that you guys will have to explore in your time in Biola. Next question: do you recommend taking summer courses at Biola to get ahead?
Mm. Yeah, I did. One of the community colleges that I did was Coastline Community College. I I did I do recommend it. I did it in the sense of GEs. I was able to get it done in a cheaper way and a cheaper route for where I was at during that time. And I was like, you know what, GEs, I'm going to get as many as I can done. So I encourage you, if you have that opportunity and that flexibility, I say you should do it. Um, if you're trying to like graduate ahead or different things like that, or try and add another minor, I would say totally do summer. I did it at a community college. I somewhat did a class at Biola in summer as well. So I was kind of managing both to be able to have more class credits added and transferred into Biola. So I encourage you, if that is a possibility, I say you should do it and get ahead. And I think it gave more time, more flexibility to do things that you would want on campus, or if you're trying to do part-time like job in the end, like, okay, the first year or so, I'm gonna dedicate fully to studies, and then, you know, later down the line, it'll be way easier, I believe, for you.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think it also depends on like the major or just the amount of courses that you have. Because I have a few people that are trying to take 18 units every semester and have realized that that's a lot to do for their specific major. And so they're kind of wishing that they would have taken advantage of some of the summer opportunities or things like that. But again, I think it really just kind of depends on your workload and how
Mhm.
you want to take your classes.
Yeah,
Okay,
very
next
true.
question. Do you recommend rooming with someone with a similar major or a completely different major from you? How did you choose your roommate and what tips do you have?
Yeah, so I kind of answer this as best as possible. I was actually a commuter student. And I actually had friends in my major made like roommate with the same major. And I think you have to find if that person will really fit. I think at times it was a lot of let's talk about major rather than build a friendship if you're trying to build a friendship with them. And so I think it's finding that balance with the roommate that you have from their experience. Like when I heard they were like, oh, well, we really don't talk. It's just about let's be acquaintances and let's just get through the major together and let's help out as best as possible. Um, but I think it's all about personality and how well you fit together as a roommate. And I think tips that people would say is see if you guys like your interests are the same, see how well you guys would click, and you know what your passion is and their passion, but then also things that they like to do and you like to do, and are they an introvert or extrovert? I think those are important questions that the friends that I had always had to ask themselves with the roommate that they had.
Yeah, I think that it's really just what you're looking for in a
Mhm.
roommate. And
Yeah.
if some people come in and they want to be best friends with the roommates, other people just kind of want to have them as a roommate and just kind of have them as a person that they can live with. And so definitely, just like you were saying, I think it just depends on your preferences. I think another few things to keep in mind are things like what kind of temperature of the room do you like, or
Mhm.
like what times do you go to bed, like simple things like that, but kind of make a big difference once you're on campus. So definitely agree with what you were saying. Okay, so this is going to be our last chatted in question. Okay, any advice for people considering different schools and trying to find the best place to go? Last tips for students deciding where to spend their undergrad years.
Mm. Yeah, I think the advice I would give is how was your experience when you talked to the admissions counselor and you made that first phone call to set up an appointment? How I look at it as a whole. How did they respond to you? I think the response and the way that they answered your questions are very important. And I think the first interaction you get is a reaction you would get at your time at a school and a college. And so for me, the experience that I had with calling Biola was way different than calling a Cal State. or calling a different university that was like, wow, let's pray for you. Let's see how the Lord will lead you, compared to like, oh, what do you want to do? And so the tones were very different. And so I believe you look at that, but then you also look at what is offered, what you see, whether that's sports, whether that's clubs, to join academically or just like missionally, or church involvement, and how that can interact and play with having, even if you pick viola, and how that degree with the minor will also be a benefit if you're trying to work in a church setting. So I say do your research, look at what other people may say online, but then also look at their website, see everything that they have to offer. And is that a fit for you? From looking at, graduation rates, if that's something that you're worried about, to the scholarship aspect. So I really believe it's looking as a whole. And a lot of students, it matters on how the campus looks. So I encourage you, if that's something, just do research it, look it up, look at what others say about the school, look at maybe their masters if that's something you consider after. So I really believe it's looking at the school as a whole. um, but I would say Biola, and I would forever say it, the community aspect, things that are so local around me, being able to know that somebody's there to pray for you and be there in the midst of things, I think is something important, and why I even picked Biola. Because I could have said no, but I said yes. And I think that obedience as well. So I would say do as much research and ask as much questions. I say call as many people from the school you need to, whether that's talking to chair of the department, to financial aid, to admissions, to outside people. I would encourage you to do that.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that that's really important, of just getting connected before and reaching out to people and hearing personal
Mhm.
experiences. I think that's one of the biggest things, because everyone has experiences from Biola, and
Mhm.
most of the time people love to share those stories. At least in my experience, I've found that people love talking about Biola and sharing all
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
But ultimately, we just want what's best for you guys. And if Biola is your
yeah,
school, then we are so excited to have you here. But if you feel like you're being called to a different school, then that is okay too. We can sit here all day and tell you that Biola is the best school ever.
yeah,
But ultimately, it's what you guys feel like God is calling you to, and where you feel like you should be. But ultimately, we'll be praying for you guys, and we can't wait to see where these next 2 years take you. So this is all the time that we have for today, but we just wanted to thank you guys for coming and being a part of today. So you guys are free to go. Thank you guys so much.